You didn't stumble upon these lines by accident. Something inside you is moving, quietly, deeply, and far more powerfully than you realize. Perhaps you're standing at the point where life feels like it's cracking into pieces. Abandoned dreams, relationships slipping through your fingers. You wake up wondering if things will ever get better. If this is the final shape of your existence, it feels as though the world has closed in, leaving you lost in a space that is both dark and terrifyingly still. But Jung believed that the very moment you think you've hit rock bottom is when the transformation begins. He taught that the human soul only starts to mature when it is forced to look straight into its own darkness. And perhaps that's exactly where you are standing, on the thin boundary between breakdown and rebirth, between disorientation and the recovery of your true self, between believing you are ending and the truth that you are about to step into the greatest chapter of your life. To make this clearer, let me ask you one simple question. If this were not the sign of a comeback, why, precisely at your most fragile moment, have you been led to these words? The answer is right behind you, and once you hear it, you will never again see your pain in the same way. Very likely, this is the opening moment of the greatest comeback of your life. Number 1. Jung's paradox. Pain is the path to consciousness. Pain always terrifies us. We want to push it away, pretend it doesn't exist. Yet Jung saw pain from an entirely different angle. He regarded it as the secret door to the deepest regions of the soul. A strange paradox. The very thing we try to escape is the key to higher consciousness. Once you understand this, you will look at everything you're going through with completely new eyes. In those moments when life hurts so much you can barely breathe, you are not merely facing circumstances. You are facing yourself. Not the self you show the world, but the submerged, primal part you yourself have denied again and again. Jung called this the meeting point between the ego and the unconscious. When the pain is enough, a person is forced to stop, forced to listen to voices they normally avoid. The feeling of breaking apart is not destruction. It is the first signal that the mask has worn thin, the shell has cracked, and what is truly inside you wants to be seen. Think of the last time you were hurt by something that felt all too familiar. A job you thought was secure is suddenly gone. A person you believed would stay, who ultimately left. Something you trusted that betrayed you at your weakest moment. Such events usually make us angry, paralyzed, or despairing. But seen through Jung's eyes, they are the cold yet necessary touches that wake us up. Nothing makes us look at ourselves more clearly than disappointment and collapse. Imagine a dark room you've lived in since childhood. You've grown so used to the darkness that you don't know there's a door at the far end leading to a vast open space. Only when the room begins to crumble are you forced to find the way out. Pain works the same way. It makes it impossible to keep living with old habits, old beliefs, old understandings of yourself. It pushes you forward even when you don't want to go. And in that very moment, consciousness begins to open. Jung always emphasized that people do not change when everything is easy. We only grow when we have no choice but to face the truth inside. Many people say they only began to understand themselves after losing something they thought they could never lose. A woman, after a breakup that felt like it tore her heart in two, suddenly realized the worst pain wasn't losing the person. It was realizing she had never truly known her own needs. A man who failed at the job that once defined his pride spent a long night asking why he had relied solely on others' approval to feed his sense of worth. Those moments cut deep into the ego like a blade. But in that very cut, their real selves began to rise. Pain has the power to illuminate like a spotlight. It shines on false beliefs, self-destructive habits, and unrealistic expectations we've carried for years. It opens a new space in the mind where we can finally see clearly, no longer through the fog of illusion. Some people say that after passing through their darkest phase, the world suddenly looked different. Not because the world changed, but because they had. Pain had broken the old frames of thinking. And as consciousness expanded, they saw truths they previously lacked the courage to face. And here is the deepest point of Jung's paradox. When you are in pain, you feel as if you're being dragged downward. In reality, you are being pulled inward, to the place your soul has been whispering from for a long time, but you never stop to listen. Pain is not the enemy. It is the guide. It is the quiet invitation to become more conscious, more authentic, more whole. If you are hurting right now, Jung would not tell you to be strong immediately. He would simply invite you to place your hand on your chest and listen. Because in this very moment, your consciousness is opening, little by little. Number 2, the shadow and dialogue with the darkness. And precisely when consciousness opens through pain, you step across another threshold in Jung's philosophy. There, darkness is no longer the hunter. It becomes the starting point for a rebound, stronger than anything you ever imagined. The shadow, according to Jung, is not something metaphysical. It is the sum of everything you try to hide. The anger you dare not admit, the fear you keep suppressed, the wounds you show no one, even the strengths you've forgotten you possess. Every person carries a locked chest. The irony is that the deeper it is buried, the more chaos it creates in your life. Jung believed the shadow never disappears. It simply waits at the edge for the right moment to rise and force you to look at it. That moment is usually when you feel your life is falling apart. Have you ever felt this? When betrayed, anger surges far beyond what seems reasonable. When criticized, the hurt cuts deeper than it should. When a small failure happens, it feels like the whole world is collapsing. Those reactions are not just responses to the event. They are reactions to old, undecoded pain. Compressed pieces of the shadow suddenly burst open and flood the surface. That very moment, Jung says, is the first open door of the comeback, not because you are strong, but because the truth inside you has finally been allowed into the light. And if somewhere in these lines you glimpse your own shadow, leave a few words in the comments as a whisper to yourself. I'm ready to look at that darkness now. Jung repeatedly stressed that the shadow is not something to destroy. It is something to integrate. We mature not by erasing the dark parts, but by walking into them and bringing them into the light of consciousness. That process is the raw material of true metamorphosis. When you dare admit you are wounded, you are no longer controlled by the wound. When you look straight at what frightens you, fear loses its power. When you face your weakness, you discover the strongest part of you that has been asleep behind it. There is a fascinating psychological insight. The dark parts inside us always contain locked energy. Some people lock away anger, others creativity, others courage. When the shadow rises, that energy rises with it. It usually arrives as an uncomfortable emotion, but if you know how to receive it, it becomes the fuel of rebirth. Picture yourself sitting in front of a rough ore deposit. At first it looks ugly, heavy and hard to handle, but inside is precious metal you've never touched. Your shadow is exactly like that. To meet it, you need a method Jung considered the bridge into the unconscious. Dialogue with the shadow. Not some vague spiritual conversation, but an actual talk with the part you've been running from. The practice is simple, yet capable of unlocking doors you sealed years ago. Here's how. When a difficult emotion surges, write on paper as if that emotion were a person sitting across from you. If you're angry, ask it, what are you trying to protect? If you're afraid, ask, when did you first appear? If you feel weak, ask, what do you want me to know that I'm ignoring? Write everything without judgment. Let it answer in the most natural flow of words. The strange thing is that when you give the shadow a chance to speak, it doesn't destroy you as you feared. It explains. It points out old limits. It talks about memories you locked away. It reminds you that it didn't appear to drag you down, but to lead you to the deepest part of yourself. And when you listen long enough, you realize what Jung always emphasized. The shadow is the part of the soul that desperately longs to be integrated. Here is the most important point. The comeback does not begin when you escape the darkness. It begins the instant you stop running from it. The moment you turn around and say, "I want to understand this." Because when you accept the confrontation, you shift from passive to active. You are no longer dragged by the shadow. You begin walking inside it on your own feet. And that is the moment your real power is activated. If darkness feels like it's enveloping your life right now, remember that in Jung's view, those falls are not the end. They are subtle messages from the unconscious, sent to the surface exactly when your soul needs an adjustment that reason alone lacks the courage to make. Number 3, failure is the unconscious repeating the lesson. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." In other words, the unconscious speaks to you in its own language. Events that seem badly timed, doors that slam shut in your face, losses that shake your heart far more than they should. If you listen closely, behind every incident, there is a message you may not yet be ready to read. Notice this. Why do you keep meeting the same kind of person who hurts you? Why do you repeatedly end up in jobs that drain you? Why does something small throw you completely off balance? That's not bad luck. That is the deliberate repetition of the unconscious. When a lesson hasn't been learned, the unconscious brings it back in a bigger, sharper form you can no longer dodge. It doesn't want to punish you. It wants you to see what you're stubbornly refusing to see. Seen this way, confusion is a signal. Disappointment is a signal. The feeling, "Why me again?" is a signal. These signals are like a compass. The unconscious quietly turns toward the direction you need to go, even if you're not ready to admit it. For example, someone chasing perfection will keep encountering situations that force failure, not because they're incompetent, but because the unconscious is demanding they learn to accept imperfection. Someone who lives to please others will keep falling into situations where they're exploited until they finally ask, "Where are my boundaries?" Those scripts are not random. They are designed by the deepest part of you. Imagine the unconscious as a vast ocean. Your conscious mind is only the thin foam on the surface. When something inside you has been hidden too long, the ocean rises into waves. Each failure is a wave crashing against the hull of your life, throwing you off balance to remind you that something below wants to be seen. Not every wave is pleasant. Some are big enough to knock you over, but those are the ones carrying the strongest messages. Sometimes only a hard enough impact can awaken memories you locked away years ago. A recent example from a viewer: a man kept chasing stable jobs, repeating the same exhausting environment while clinging on. He told me he had been fired 3 times for reasons unrelated to his performance. Only on the 3rd time, when everything collapsed and he had nowhere left to turn, did he notice the strange pattern. All 3 environments had made him lose himself. He realized something unexpected. The stability he clung to wasn't safety. It was the fear of change. And the unconscious had to push him out of those places again and again, because without a strong enough fall, he would never have seen the path his soul truly wanted to take. And here is the most subtle point in Jung's philosophy. Failure is sometimes the way the unconscious corrects your life's trajectory. From the outside, you see only loss. From the inside, it may be the first time your life is pulled back onto the right course. Jung called this the self-regulation of the psyche, a mysterious yet astonishingly precise mechanism that leaves us in awe when we look back. Number 4, the journey of individuation. At this point, you enter the most central concept in Jung's entire system of thought, the journey of individuation. This is no longer merely about failure or wounds. This is the journey of becoming the person you were born to be, not a copy shaped by expectations, fears, or the labels society pinned on you from childhood. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are," and that is the very soul of individuation. Individuation is not about changing yourself into a better version. It is the process of removing everything that does not belong to you, the roles you had to play in your family, the standards you tried to meet to be loved, the ways of living that were never yours, yet you maintained because you thought you should. Jungian psychology holds that we are always torn between two forces, the true self and the social persona. Individuation is when the true self begins to reclaim dominion. In Jung's view, individuation is like stepping out of a dark room you have lived in your whole life, simply because someone told you it was safe. The fascinating thing is that this journey is not always comfortable. There are phases when you will feel completely disoriented because you are no longer the old self, yet the new self has not yet formed. Jung called this the transitional void, the space where the soul is restructuring itself. A real-life example, a follower of the channel once shared that she spent nearly 10 years pursuing the career her family demanded, not because she truly wanted it, but because she was afraid of disappointing them. Every day at work felt like wearing clothes that didn't fit. Eventually, her body began to rebel, insomnia, exhaustion, depression. And right when she thought she had failed, she realized something. Her body and mind were refusing a life that was not hers. When she started drawing again, the passion of her childhood, energy returned most naturally. She said the feeling wasn't excitement, it was simply right. That is the classic chain of reactions in individuation. You feel the rightness, without needing your mind to convince you that you should like it. Individuation is not an outward journey. It is an inward one, of gathering, reclaiming, reuniting. You face the broken pieces inside you, not to judge them, but to understand where they belong. You realize that strength and weakness are both in you, joy and sorrow are both you, light and darkness are both you. And when those parts are reconnected, you become a complete whole, no longer torn by inner conflict. Individuation is not only a psychological process, it is a sacred one. Jung believed every soul has its own unique blueprint, implanted long before we were conscious enough to understand it. People suffer, feel stuck or lost, not because they are useless, but because they are living too far from that blueprint. When you start walking toward your true self, subtle signs appear that you are on the right path. A gentle peace in your chest, strange coincidences, the right people finding you, doors opening without force. The process is never easy, yet it is the deepest liberation a human being can experience. Because in the end, you no longer live as a character in someone else's story. You return to being the author of your own. If you have come this far with me, thank you from the bottom of my heart. On this journey, we have only walked half the distance. What lies ahead is deeper, truer, and will touch your being more powerfully than anything that has come before. If you wish to continue walking together, stay with us. A like or subscribe right now is not only support for the channel, it is a quiet promise you make to yourself. I will keep stepping into the life that belongs to me. Number 5, the practice of sitting with pain. If individuation is the process of becoming yourself, then sitting with pain is the first ritual that allows you to step through that door, because there are things the soul will only reveal when you are still enough to listen. In Jung's view, pain is not the enemy. It is a messenger from the unconscious, knocking when you have strayed too far from your true self. Yet most of us respond by running, throwing ourselves into work, clinging to others, keeping busy. Anything, as Jung wrote, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. Sitting with pain means, do not try to fix it, explain it, or turn it positive. It means letting it appear exactly as it is, a heaviness in the chest, an emptiness in the heart, a tightness in the throat, an anger that has never been named. And that is the very gateway into the deepest unconscious. Jung believed that when an emotion is fully felt, it finds its own way to dissolve. No forcing, no suppressing, just true presence. Imagine pain as a child abandoned in the dark. It doesn't need your lectures. It only needs you to sit beside it. Emotions are the same. When you sit with them, they soften. When you look straight at them, they stop screaming. When you give them safe space, they begin to speak the truth. And that is when you understand what Jung wanted to convey. Pain is the beginning of honesty with yourself. A friend once told me that after a breakup that nearly destroyed her, she tried everything to forget. The more she avoided, the stronger the pain returned. One night, she sat alone. No sound, no phone, no one to lean on. She let the pain rise. She described it as cold water running down her spine. The first 15 minutes were hell. But around the 20th minute, the pain turned into clarity. For the first time, she heard a voice inside. What hurts is not losing him. It's that I never dared to love myself the way I loved him. From that moment, she knew she had stepped into a new phase of life. Sitting with pain is the act of facing the truth without judgment. This is what Jungian psychology calls holding the tension between opposites. One side wants to flee, the other wants to understand. When you hold that tension long enough, what Jung called transmutation occurs. And when you dare to sit with pain, you discover something very strange. The pain was never trying to kill you. It shows you where your limits are. It reveals which needs inside you remain unmet. It points out what in your life is misaligned. Pain is the silent, patient guide waiting for you to be brave enough to listen. If you have ever had a moment when pain suddenly spoke the truth to you in a way no one else ever has, share a little of it in the comments, not for me, but so you can hear your own heart again. That is why Jung always regarded facing pain as the sacred part of the individuation journey. You cannot become whole if you still fear your wounded parts. And right here, a quiet transformation takes place. You realize pain is not the end. It is the door to a resource Jung considered the deepest compass of the soul, intuition. Number 6. The practice of intuition. Jung said, intuition is the ability to know truth without going through logic, an ancient form of intelligence that lies deeper than reason. And the fascinating thing is, intuition cannot awaken while your mind is noisy. It only begins to function when pain has been seen, when emotions have settled, when you stop running from yourself. In that stillness, intuition rises like clear water from the bottom of a deep well. Not hurried, not loud, but so accurate it makes you shiver. Awakening intuition is not something distant. It begins with the small signals you usually ignore. A contraction in the chest when something is wrong for you, a strange lightness when thinking of a new direction, a feeling of right that appears just before an important decision, even though you can't explain it. In Jungian psychology, these signals are not coincidental. In Jung's view, intuition is the meeting point between the conscious and unconscious. It is not a random premonition. It is the result of thousands of pieces of information the unconscious has observed, stored, analyzed, and then delivered to consciousness as a clear feeling. So, how do you awaken intuition? Practice 1. Daily silence. Just 5 to 10 minutes without noise, without a phone. Sit down, close your eyes, place a hand on your chest and ask, what is moving inside me right now? Don't wait for words. Intuition answers in sensation, a warmth, a tightening, an image flashing by. All of it is information. Practice 2. Dialogue, writing with emotion. Treat this as a small ritual to call intuition awake. When you sit before the page, don't try to write well or correctly. Let the hand do what the mind cannot. Open the path for the inner voice to pour out. Start with a very simple question. Is this truly for me? Then write whatever appears first, even if it feels so vague you think you're making it up. Do not edit. Do not reason. Do not twist it to sound logical. Emotion is the language of the unconscious, and the unconscious never speaks at length. Sometimes it is just one word. No. Sometimes yes, but carefully. Sometimes only color, image, or a shiver. That line is intuition, stepping from darkness into light. When you write as if you are talking to a very ancient part of yourself, a part that knew who you were before you learned who you were supposed to be. Practice 3. Listen to the body's reactions. Your body reacts before the mind can rationalize, and it is almost always right. Give yourself a few seconds of pause before every choice. Notice the breath. Does it expand or contract? Is the chest light or heavy? Shoulders relaxed or tight? Belly soft or tense? When something fits, the body loosens as if setting down a burden. When something is wrong, the body signals with subtle alarms, a slight clench, an irregular heartbeat, or the feeling that you have to force yourself to endure it. Jung believed the body never lies. It will always protect you in ways reason sometimes forgets. Practice 4. Reduce analysis, increase feeling. Some decisions become more confusing the more you think about them, not because you are inadequate, but because you are trying to use logic to decode what can only be felt by the soul. Intuition does not appear when the mind is overloaded with analysis. It appears when you are soft enough to feel. Try replacing a big question with a small one. Instead of, "Is this right?" ask, "How does it feel?" If it feels light, that is a hint. If it feels heavy, that is also a hint. Feeling is not passive. It is a sophisticated form of intelligence modern humans have forgotten. When you stop forcing life to obey logic, you begin to hear the guidance of intuition, gentle, soft, yet astonishingly precise. And when you practice long enough, you will notice something very special. Intuition does not teach you to go faster. It teaches you to go in the right direction. It does not give instant answers. It leads you to the answers your soul needs. And that matters more than any rational plan. That is why Jung always regarded intuition as the compass of the individuation journey. Only intuition knows the path that leads you back to your true self. When you begin to trust it, life no longer pushes you forward out of fear. It begins to shift through small signs so subtle you could miss them if you are not refined enough to notice. For Jung, these movements are proof that the unconscious has changed position, and your life is slowly turning toward its true direction. Number 7. Signs of shifting. The first shift usually appears inside your emotions, not a powerful surge of excitement, but a subtle lightening in places that once felt heavy. You no longer react as intensely as before. Things that used to enrage you now only make you quiet. Things that once wounded you deeply no longer strike with the same force. This is not numbness. This is the sign that your psyche is restructuring itself from within. When you begin sitting with pain, when intuition awakens, when the unconscious is finally heard, old wounds stop controlling you. That very gentleness is the proof that you are coming back to life. Another sign is that you stop trying to please everyone. You stop chasing standards that were never yours. You stop clinging to things that have clearly outlived their place in your life. That not trying is not surrender. It is clarity. As intuition grows stronger, you know what is worth keeping and what is not. Jung called this inner reorientation, where the soul quietly sheds old habits the way the body eliminates toxins, and you feel lighter even though nothing dramatic has happened on the outside. The shift also appears in how you see the world. Things that once terrified you suddenly lose their power. Things that once made you doubt yourself now feel worth exploring. You begin to sense a gentle yet distinct current of energy pulling you toward goals you never dared consider before. Jung called this the rising of the self, the true center of the psyche. When the self begins to replace the ego as your guide, you feel a very quiet urge to move forward, but without force. This is mature strength, not the strength of resistance. To recognize these shifts more clearly, practice one simple yet profound method. Every evening, write down 3 small things that made you feel different from the person you were yesterday. It could be, today you said no to something that used to frighten you. Today, you didn't blame yourself for a small mistake. Today, you feel comfortable being alone. These changes seem minor, but they are the footprints of your return. Intuition is not measured by achievements. It is measured by the subtle shifts in how you exist. Another important sign, you begin to see meaning in the very things that once caused you pain. Not forced positivity, but genuine understanding from within. You realize, I am stronger because of that. Or, if that hadn't happened, I would still be living a life that isn't mine. This is the moment when unconscious and conscious temporarily harmonize, what Jung called inner synchronicity. When this occurs, the events of your life start connecting as if they were always designed to bring you here. And perhaps the most beautiful sign of the comeback is a peace that needs no reason. One morning, you wake up and feel space inside your chest. Not overly joyful, not overly sad, just peace. As if a thick layer of clouds has finally parted after years. That peace is not a gift from the outside. It is the sign that your inner world is returning to its true orbit. Number 8. Synchronicity. Jung described synchronicity as meaningful coincidence. Events that seem random yet arrive exactly when you need them, with no logical explanation. But it is not magic. It is the unconscious influencing reality, creating external signals to guide you. When the inner world shifts, the outer world responds. And synchronicity is the language of that response. It can appear in the most ordinary moments. You think of someone, and they message you after years of silence. You're hesitating over a choice, and suddenly hear the exact words you needed in a random video. You're exhausted from inner struggle, and right then stumble upon a quote that opens your heart. Or an opportunity arrives the very moment you decide to release what no longer fits. What makes synchronicity special is not the coincidence itself, but the feeling it gives you, the unmistakable sense of being guided. A real example, a follower once shared that when he finally decided to leave his old job and try a creative field, he was terrified. Nobody supported him. Yet the very next day, he received an email from an old friend who worked as a screenwriter, asking if he'd like to join a small project. The friend said, "I just suddenly thought of you yesterday." For Jung, this was not a chance. This was reality answering the signal your soul had just sent out. Synchronicity cannot be forced. It only appears when you begin living in the direction your true self is calling. Because then you are no longer merely thinking, you are resonating. Unconscious and conscious stand on the same side, and the world outside automatically adjusts. To recognize synchronicity more clearly, try a simple practice. Whenever a coincidence makes you pause even for a second, write it down. Note the date, the time, and how it made you feel. No analysis needed, just record it. Within a week, you will start seeing patterns. You may notice synchronicities always come on days you trusted your intuition, or they appear right after you let go of something old, or when you step outside your comfort zone. These repeating patterns are an invisible map, showing you that you are on the right path. Another practice is ask and remain open. Before sleep, quietly say to yourself, "If there is something I need to see, show me a sign tomorrow." Not begging, not demanding, just opening. And the surprising thing is that synchronicity often arrives strongest when you are not searching. Searching belongs to the ego. Receiving belongs to intuition. You can also practice by noticing your inner reaction when synchronicity occurs. If your chest warms, your heart slows, or you feel as if someone gently tapped your shoulder, that is a strong sign. The unconscious is saying, "Yes, keep going." Jung believed synchronicity is evidence of the connection between the mind and the universe. When you change, you send out a wave. And the world somehow responds with events that match your new frequency. Sometimes synchronicity appears to remind you that you are not walking alone. You might find the exact book you need falling into your hands. You might meet someone who has been through what you're facing at your most exhausted moment. The universe has its own way of delivering messages, and synchronicity is how the unconscious and the outer world shake hands to guide you back to the life you were born to live. If you have read this far, something deep inside you already knows you are no longer the same person who began this journey. A part of you has heard, has resonated, has recognized. What once brought you to your knees was not just wounds, it was the imprint of a path quietly changing direction. The outside may not have shifted much yet. No one else may notice you are transforming. But Jung would tell you this: the greatest turning points in a person's life always begin in silence, where no one sees except your own soul. From today forward, you do not need to come back in the loud way the world celebrates. The greatest comeback is not when you prove anything to